Hi, Laurie Green Westlake with you again today, and we're going to talk about the wonderful imagery that Christ uses when he talks about himself as a groom to the church, which is you and I. We are the bride. And there are more than 10 verses that he uses to let us know, to give us a look at how deeply he loves us, how connected we are to be to him, and how a human relationship portrays the relationship between Christ and his beloveds. So I want to start by just giving you a few verses. I've got 10 here. There are probably more, but this is where we can start. I'm just going to give these verse references to you so you can write them down and look them up later so we don't take up a lot of time reading. And as you've seen already, I just am a slow reader. And it's probably because the print on my Bible is that big and the bottom of my glasses are not magnified enough. It seems those just need to get better every year with age, as some of you are aware, I'm sure. Okay, here are some references. John 3:29, Matthew 9:14 through 15, Mark 2:18 through 20, Luke 5:33 through 35, Revelation 22:17, one of my favorites, John 2:9, Revelation 19:7, and Ephesians 5, verses 25 through 27. And lastly, Revelation 21, verse 2. So look those up after I tell you this story. Several years ago, a really long time back, I took the things that I had learned about the customs that the Jews of biblical times used around their wedding. And I also attended a Jewish Bible study for a short season of life, but it was led by a Jewish rabbi, believing rabbi. And I learned so much that it just opened the Word of God to me, the imagery and the customs of the Jews back during those times really helped me relate to some of the parables that are a little more difficult. But from learning all these things, I learned this wonderful facts about the Jewish wedding and customs of the old times. And so I put a story together that I tell at Bible study and whenever I can. As a matter of fact, I love to tell young people this story to kind of let them see how sacred the marriage is between a man and a woman and what it really symbolizes. So anyway, and before we get started, I've had a couple of people ask me about where am I sitting. I'm in my dining room. If you look, that's an old buffet table, no work table that I use as a sideboard in my dining room, and it is the room with the least amount of bright sunlight that distorts the camera. I live in a Tudor house that was built in 1931, and maybe one day I'll take you on a tour. But enough of that. Let's start with our story. Put yourself back in the rocky terrain, in the desert terrain of old Israel, and think about how villages must have looked then as we go through this story. No modern conveniences in your imagery, okay? There was this young man named John, and he came up from a family of 4 boys. And it was their customs that when the boys became of marrying age, their father would select a bride, and she would come to their home and live, and each son would build an area onto the father's existing home and create this space for his coming wife and their growing family. So in this particular family, we have John. He's got 3 older brothers, and he is the last, and his father has paid for 3 brides. Now, one day, John he was becoming of age, which was probably around 17 years old, but for your purpose, think of him as a young adult. And his father came to him and said, John, the time is come when we must talk about your bride, when it is time for you to take a wife. Now, this excited John very much because, you see, there was this girl back in the village. Her name was Mary. And when he would go into town to take care of his father's business, he would pass by the watering hole at a certain time of day, knowing that that was the late afternoon when Mary would be coming to the well to get water for her family. And he would pass through that area and glance over, and amazingly, sometimes she'd steal a glance at him. And his heart would just do some very funny things when he would see Mary there at the well. And he could tell by the look on her face that there was something special going on in her heart too. And so when his father asked him this question, he went, "Oh, Dad, there is a girl. There is a woman that I really, really would like to have as my own. But she is her father's only daughter. And so I know she will be expensive. And so I cannot even ask you, Father, because you've already paid for 3 brides." Now you see, back in those days, the father's family paid a bridal price for the bride. And so if you were someone with a lot of sons, you were going to be spending some money to bring in brides to the home. But if you were a man with only daughters, the daughters were your endowment, your savings account, the way that you would live without children, because there would be no one added on to your family helping to grow your businesses, or no labor coming into the home. So Mary was an only child. She was her family's only daughter, and therefore she was their future livelihood and a bride price. Plus, Mary was gorgeous. And she was well wanted. Okay, I'm going to stop there for time's sake. Go to video 2 to finish watching this. But in the meantime, look up your scriptures and let's get started. Thanks.